Everyone, and welcome back to Wildly Free Reflections. I'm super excited to talk about something today that sounds really overly simple and simplified, but is actually one of the most powerful things that we need to practice in order for ourselves to change, right? If you are seeking any change in your life, whether that is changing a habit, a behavior, moving out of a relationship, going after your dreams, like anything that you want to change or do takes this one thing, and that is self awareness. So, you may have heard Dr. Phil say this before. I'm not like a huge fan of Dr. Phil or anything, but I remember him saying this one time, and I was like, damn, he's right. And he always says, you cannot change what you don't acknowledge. So, have you ever had the experience where someone kind of reflects back to you a behavior that you weren't aware of before? Like, hey, you're not really a morning person, or you get really defensive when I ask you about, X, Y, or Z. And you take a moment and you're like, whoa, like I never realized that before. I never realized I wasn't a morning person, or I never realized that I like avoided difficult conversations or whatever the case may be, right? So sometimes it takes other people to bring these things into our awareness. So we can change them, right? But if they live outside of our consciousness, or we're unconscious of these behaviors, it's absolutely impossible to change those things. So self awareness is necessary in order to create any change that you want in your life. And there's a few ways that we can heighten our self-awareness or improve our self-awareness. One of those is therapy, right? For those of you who have been in therapy, you probably have had your counselor reflect back to you what they're noticing, some of your patterns, some of, the way that you speak, the way that you behave, the way that you hold yourself, right? That's kind of what therapy is for. It's for that ability to build on knowledge of who you are so you can change and create the life that you want. Mindfulness and meditation is another way that we can become more self-aware, right? Becoming aware of our thoughts. So specifically meditation that is about becoming more aware of your thoughts, right? And becoming mindful, using presence, using practices like stop, right? Where you literally stop, take a breath, observe what's going on, and then proceed with compassion. So there's these different techniques that we can use to build our self-awareness so we can change, right? And of course, one of those practices is also journaling, which is what I'm going to talk a lot about today, because that's the one that I have the most experience with. And although I have been to therapy for many, many years, and I'm a practicing therapist, or I'm in school to become a therapist, journaling has definitely been something I've been doing for many, many, many years to build my self-awareness so I could create the life that I truly wanted. So a lot of the changes that I have made in my life, I attribute to my journaling practice. I would absolutely not be where I am today without my journaling practice. Period. End of story. So journaling is such a great option for people who can't afford therapy or don't have insurance to go to therapy. It's a great tool for those of you who really struggle with meditation, sitting still, becoming aware of your thoughts. It's a great tool for anybody who is really ready to make the changes in their life. So there are a few things that I want to talk about in terms of ways that journaling can help improve our self-awareness. Like, how does journaling specifically support us? And so I'll just speak to a few of these. The list is long, my friends. Like, the list is incredibly long when it comes to the benefits of journaling and how journaling can support you in creating the life that you want. But one of the biggest ones is deepening your understanding of yourself, right? That is why many of us turn to journaling. It's because we want to understand, why do I get so pissed off when my partner wants to talk to me about this? Or why am I so annoyed with my coworker when they ask me about that? Or why do I hate waking up in the morning? Or, what is it about my addiction to sugar that I need, that I need to address, right? The opportunities and the topics of exploration are infinite, right? Absolutely infinite. But journaling helps us kind of understand, like, why am I the way that I am? What experiences have I had in the past, good, bad, or indifferent, that have kind of shaped who I am, the way that I view the world, my perspectives, my mindset, my attitude, my mood. All of those play a role, right, in us understanding who we are. And journaling can absolutely help us peel back those layers and peel back, the onion, so to speak, to understand ourselves a little bit more. And there's this fantastic quote by John Dewey that I found here recently, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so great. And it says, and he says, we do not learn from experience, we learn from reflecting on our experience. Isn't that the truth? Right? We learn by going back and going, that didn't work out so well. Or actually, that was really fantastic. I want to do more of that in my future, right? We learn by actually taking some time to reflect on our experiences, taking the lessons, taking the celebrations, taking the goodness, and, applying that to our future practices, right? So journaling also helps us become aware of our thought and behavior patterns. So this was something that journaling is something that I used here recently over the last couple years. I'll just give a personal example. Over the last couple of years, I've become incredibly sober curious. I come from a family who long line of functioning alcoholics. We live in a society where alcohol is very accepted. It's like at every single occasion, right? It's at every football game, every wedding, mostly, right? It's literally everywhere. It's a part of every gathering, every event, every celebration, even like, funerals and wakes and things like that. There's most likely alcohol provided. And it's been through my journaling practice that I've really started to understand that alcohol just does not serve me anymore. It did for a while, in my 20s and in my 30s. And over the last, several years, there's just been this kind of like inkling, this kind of feeling of like, it's not serving me anymore. I don't need it in my life. I'm not benefiting from it in any way. And it's taken me years to really understand and sift through, why do I want to drink sometimes? Why do I not want to drink sometimes? What impact does alcohol have on my physical health? What kind of impact does it have on my mental health? And as a matter of fact, it's been interesting. One of the things that I discovered through my journaling practice was the impact that alcohol actually has on my confidence. And this was a huge discovery for me because it was so outside of my awareness. Had I never given myself the opportunity to really reflect on and inquire about, how does alcohol impact my mental health, I would have never discovered this about myself. So it wasn't even necessarily like the headache the next day that I had perhaps, but it was the impact that it had on my confidence that really negatively impacted me and helped motivate me to really cut back and eliminate alcohol from my life nearly completely at this point. So that's one of the ways, like a personal experience I wanted to share with you all, that self-awareness has really helped me change my behavior and actually incredibly improve my life in so many ways. Improving my relationships, improving my relationship with myself, deepening my understanding, my compassion I have for myself. Of course, improving my physical health, my mental health, so many things. And I can attribute this all back to my journaling practice and getting curious, right? One of the things I want to highlight here when it comes to self-reflection and self-awareness is the importance of reflecting from the viewpoint of curiosity and compassion. When we reflect on our lives through the lens of shame or judgment, we're not going to get anywhere. Truly, we are not going to get anywhere, or it's going to take us twice as long, 3 times as long, 4 times as long to get to where we want to go. So when we reflect back on, fuck, like I drank too much and now I feel like shit, and what kind of impact does it have on my life, instead of looking back and shaming yourself and judging yourself and whatever it is that you want to change or whatever it is that you've experienced, you must look back and go, what triggered that? I wonder what was going on with me. Was it out of celebration? Was it out of sadness, right? Like getting curious about your experiences, and being incredibly compassionate. Like, oh, that actually makes a lot of sense because I was under a lot of stress at that time, or whatever the case may be, right? So it helps us deepen our understanding of ourselves, understand our thoughts and behaviors. And of course, it helps us kind of process our emotions, right? We live in a world where it's like, just go, 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 stuff it under the rug, like sweep it under the rug, stuff it down. We don't need to address that right now. But journaling can help us process our emotions, which is an incredibly important part of our mental and emotional health, right? So writing those things down that are coming up for you, can just help you process those emotions versus stuffing them down and them kind of rearing their ugly heads at a later date and kind of catch you off guard, right? So your journal should be a safe space for you to be able to write those things down, process them, and kind of leave them and let them be, right? It's like moving that energy, that emotional energy. That's what emotions are. They are, right? It's emotional energy. Moving it out of your physical energy and onto the page. So journaling can also help us reflect on past traumas, right? And understand the impact that past traumas have maybe had on us and are still having on us. And it can help us actually process our trauma. And this is, there's been a really interesting study done, and I talk about this often because it's quite fascinating. A study done with veterans, post-war veterans. And what they did with these veterans is they had them actually write about their traumatic experiences in detail in their journal. And it actually helped them process and move past that trauma so it didn't have such a triggering negative impact on their lives. So it lessened the intensity and kind of the hold that this trauma had on their lives previous to their journaling about their experiences. So I think many of us have the misconception that if we journal about it, it's gonna like rear it back up and it's gonna be impossible for us to like let that go. Actually, the opposite is true. What research has found is that the more that we can, not the more that we can write about it, but the more willing we are to address whatever feels intense or real for us, the more likely it is to subside. That is what emotions are meant to do. They are meant to dissipate. They are meant to move. They aren't meant to be stuffed in a corner or put away into a box. So when we write about those things and we allow ourselves to feel through them, the emotions and the intensity actually dissipates and lessens. So that's a really fascinating, beautiful thing about our journaling practice and self-reflection and self-awareness. It also, kind of on a more positive aspect, our journaling practice and our reflective practices helps to bring to our awareness what our dreams are, what our desires are. I can't tell you how many times I've written in my journal, this dream I had, or that dream I had, or this goal that I wanted to go after that was completely outside of my consciousness, right? And it wasn't until I started writing and giving myself permission to write these things down and address them where it was like, oh, okay, like how exciting, right? I want to write a book, or I want to start a business, or I want to quit this job and I want to go after this thing, or I want to do this art. It really helps us to live more authentically aligned lives, right? When we become self-aware, when we become aware of our dreams and our desires, we live more authentic lives. And when we are living our authentic lives, guess what? We are fucking happier people, right? So that's just another bonus that this self-awareness and reflective practice can have on your life. I already mentioned that it can help us identify our goals, right? And get really clear on the goals that we want to go after. And last but certainly not least, our awareness and our self-awareness, it can actually provide feedback, right? It can provide feedback and answers to our biggest questions. So again, from a personal standpoint, my reflective journaling practices are a lot about like understanding my reactions, understanding my thoughts, understanding my patterns, understanding my behaviors, and getting really curious about like, why do I get so defensive about this? Or what is this thing about scarcity that keeps coming up for me? Or what is my relationship with abundance? Or what is it about me that feels like I constantly need to be doing something or achieving something more, right? Like just again, giving ourselves this opportunity to inquire and understand ourselves better so we can change if the goal is to change, right? So a couple other things I just want to mention before I end our little video today is some of the benefits of self-awareness, right? I've already addressed a few of those and what journaling can do. But there truly is no greater investment into our lives than self-reflection and self-awareness. I feel like it is my belief that knowing ourselves is one of our purposes on this planet. We are here to know ourselves. And I know that feels very, it might feel a little like self-centered and selfish, but I believe that, and I've experienced personally, to be honest, the more we understand ourselves and who we are, the more that ripples out into the world, right? The more we're showing people what's possible, the more we show up as our authentic selves, the more self-aware we are, the better we show up in our relationships, in our work relationships, right? It everywhere in our lives, it has an impact. So it's not just for us. This also has an impact on the people and on your environment and on your life and on the next generation and so on and so forth. So it's a beautiful, worthwhile practice to, be self-reflective and create self-awareness in your life. Self-awareness helps us grow. So if you are somebody who loves growing, who loves personal development, who is on like a growth-minded path in your life, please start a journaling practice if you haven't already. Even if it's something as simple as understanding and asking yourself how you're feeling that day and how you want to feel, or what you want to do that day and why. Something as simple as that can have such a deep impact on our lives and shifting into living lives that are more aligned with what it is that we want for ourselves. So as I said, it also helps improve our relationships. It helps us gain perspective. I can't tell you how many times I've just been kind of flabbergasted and sometimes a little bit annoyed when I do different techniques in my journal, such as like, I wonder what this was like from this person's perspective, right? Like, this is how I felt in my argument with my husband or in that uncomfortable conversation with my sister or whatever. And then kind of flipping it and getting curious. I wonder what that was like for them. And it can help deepen our understanding and our compassion. And it can help improve our relationships, when we kind of flip and give ourselves the opportunity to see something from a different standpoint or from a different perspective. I've gone down so many rabbit holes in my journaling practice, to be honest. It's really fascinating to see what can be uncovered if you give yourself the opportunity to just start writing and start getting curious about who you are as a person and who it is that you want to be. It helps change your unhealthy habits and patterns, like I've described already with my relationship with alcohol. It can help you improve your eating patterns, your exercise patterns, your communication style. Journaling can help you in every aspect of your life. One of the things that's been really fascinating for me and kind of surprised me about a journaling practice is that the more you know yourself, the more self-aware you are, actually the more confident you are. So this actually came into play in my life, really understanding myself as an introvert and as an empath. Before I really had the awareness of who I am as an introvert and an empath, I would really force myself to show up in these different environments and in these different places or parties and expect myself to behave in a certain way or feel a certain way. But once I started to understand, like, damn, I'm an introvert. Like, when I go to a party, my energy actually immediately starts to decrease. Wow, as an empath, like, I really feel people's energy, and that's kind of difficult for me, and that adds to the exhaustion and the depletion of my energy when I'm around other people. So having that understanding and knowledge about myself has really helped me kind of protect my energy. It's allowed me to set boundaries in, yeah, I'll show up to this event, but this is not a great place for me to be at this time. And just really being able to navigate my energy and set boundaries in a way that really serves who I am as a person versus forcing and expecting myself to show up and be a certain way, which is exhausting in and of itself. It helps us manage our stress and anxiety, of course. I feel like I've talked about that before. I've already mentioned the importance of processing our emotions. That's a huge one. I think we underestimate the impact that our emotions or unfelt emotions actually has on our mental, emotional, and our physical health. That suppression is detrimental, as a matter of fact. And maybe that can be a whole nother YouTube video at another time. Last but certainly not least, journaling helps us in our self-awareness, helps us build our resilience. It helps us build that vulnerability muscle, which is directly related to our growth. Vulnerability is directly related to our level of growth and our willingness to grow in our lives and get uncomfortable, right? And say the uncomfortable thing, do the uncomfortable thing, write the uncomfortable thing, whatever the case may be. And yeah, it's just incredibly beneficial when it comes to building that strength muscle and our resilience in our lives. Writing those things down and processing those things can help kind of reflect back just how strong and capable we actually are. So, self-awareness is essential to any change that you want to make in your life. And I read this recently, and I wanted to kind of end with this, and I'll leave us with a journaling prompt as well for us to reflect on. So I read this recently and I was like, oh my gosh, yes. The more reflective you are, the more effective you are. So that is self-reflection in a nutshell, right? The more reflective you are, the more willing you are to be reflective on your life and who you are and the way that you behave and the way that you think, the more of an effective individual you become, right? How incredible right? And how incredible to be able to take care of yourself in that way and serve yourself in that way. So I want to leave you with this journaling prompt. So put, 3 to 5 minutes on the clock and answer this question, okay? In what ways could being more self-aware improve my life? In what ways could being more self-aware improve my life? So what would improve for you? How would you benefit if you knew yourself more, if you understood yourself more, if you accepted yourself more? What would change in your life for the better? All right, everyone, thank you so much. I had such a great time talking about this today. This thought hit me the other day when I was just like, it all starts with self-reflection. It all starts with self-awareness. And I just knew I had to do a video on this. So thank you so much for being here. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. Feel free to leave a comment below, answer that journaling prompt below, and I am so happy to respond and reply and cheer you on as you create a self-reflective practice and build your self-awareness. It is the best gift that you will ever give yourself. All right, I'll see you next time. Bye.